What's up, y'all? Welcome to the What is Truth podcast. This is take 2. Left my mic on mute prior to this, but here we go again. Today I am joined by a young chap by the name of Addy Ads. How are you, young fella?
I'm great, Weezy. Yeah, I'm back in New York after being down south for a bit, and it feels great to be back on the show, man. I appreciate it. I like your production. It's high quality. I respect it.
Oh man, I'm just starting up, man. You got to start somewhere. Hopefully it
Yeah.
pays off down the road. But yeah, man. Before we get started, where can people find you?
Okay. Yeah. I'm at Twitter, one Addy Ads, ONEADDYADDS, and for video broadcasts and reports, interviews, I'm sending people to Rockfin now, ROKFIN.com/Addy Ads, ADDYADDS. And I'm also on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, Subscribe Star, Venmo, Cash App if people want to support me. And then for writing and just general updates, in addition to Buy Me a Coffee, I have a Substack. I write for the Rundown Live based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And also independently, I just released my second book, How to Cover the Ghislaine Maxwell Trial. And yeah, that's where people can find me at.
Hell yeah, you heard it. Hit him up, my man. So just a reminder, you had been covering the Maxwell trial right there in New York, giving us updates regularly mostly on Twitter, and
Yep.
and as you know, you and Ryan Dawson are my go-to folks when it comes to Epstein, Maxwell. You guys are extremely knowledgeable. You guys know the ins and outs, all the characters involved, and yeah. So I've been covering it on my own, but it's always awesome to have an actual expert such as yourself, to come and join and go over the finer nuances regarding this entire saga, man. Just a crazy couple of weeks, man. We had. What was it? The settlements. We've had the Maxwell possible retrial is still up in limbo. We've had fucking bombings in Ukraine, all kinds of shit, man. So, and also Jean-Luc Brunel. Yeah, man. So I would like to touch on all these things and get your take on it. Where would you feel comfortable? I mean, I guess we could start off with Maxwell. The whole trial thing. Last I heard, it sounded like fucking Cheez-It Boy. What's his name? Scotty Davidson or?
Yeah, Scotty David. Yep.
Yeah, Scotty David, aka Cheez-Its. I still can't get over that shit, bro. Running around with a goddamn Cheez-It box. But yeah, apparently he lied, and last I heard, the judge was gonna kind of be investigating him, kind of like a one-on-one type of deal or some shit like that. What's the deal there?
So he actually, today there was, I think, 4 entries in the docket, and he's going to be he got called to a hearing on the 9th of March. So I'm going to be attending that. It's at 10 a.m. at the Thurgood Marshall Courthouse, and he's going to be questioned. And yeah, that was the big thing on the docket today. So yeah, Scotty David is, as far as this, but prior to today, they were really just arguing about the redactions, with the legal defense team for Ghislaine Maxwell wanting to redact as much as possible, and the government wanting to redact pretty much nothing, which I found funny because they were talking about the public's right of access to court documents and proceedings. Whereas during the trial, they were completely the opposite and made it pretty much as secretive as they possibly could, while getting away with it. And, in that's despite, I think, public demand for a call-in line, which I think was largely spearheaded by Matthew Lee of Intercity Press, and supported by people like myself and many, if not most or all of the other reporters, certainly independent reporters that I interacted with on the trial. And the other big effect was the lack of the cameras, of course. Not it not being a state trial, like the Rittenhouse trial, which was like that
Yeah.
was like the Super Bowl or something that was so big, you know.
Yeah, dude, that's one of the things that's been pretty depressing to see, man, how that kind of shit got all kinds of news. Every network was talking about it 24/7. And then you have
Yeah,
this, arguably the biggest case in our most of our lifetimes, maybe everyone's lifetimes, and yet
yeah.
it almost seemed like the mainstream didn't really want to cover it. It's like they did the bare minimum to cover it, not sending their best, not giving it the attention that it deserved. I mean, going back to Cheez It Boy, the son of a bitch was affiliated with the Carlyle Group. Epstein
Yes.
was affiliated with the Carlyle Group. How the hell wasn't that some kind of front page news, man? I mean, that's fucking gigantic. And yet, you had to dig through all kinds of shit just to find that out. I'm still mind
Yeah.
boggled by that connection.
Yeah. That blew my mind too. When I remember I remember reporting on it and I was just like, wow, when I found that. And then the CIA connection too with Frank Carlucci, former deputy director, and he was like the chairman of the Carlyle Group for I think 12 years or so, ending in I think 2002. I want to say it was 10 or 12 years, but yeah, that CIA connection, the Epstein connection, it's deep stuff, and just coincidentally, that's the guy who speaks out. You know, it just seems a little
Yeah.
weird, especially given the fact that he had permission from his employer to speak out. And yeah, lots going on, man. We
Well,
got the
and then
Brunel death.
the retrial's hanging on his ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, god damn, man. It's just so fishy, man. I honestly didn't have high expectations on this whole deal, and I remain that way, man. It just too much fuckery had gone on for years prior to this. We finally get to the Super Bowl, if you will, and the fuckery continues, man. It's just complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, with the you got Pizzagate, Cheez-It-Gate, Jergate. You know, you got Judge Nathan Gate with her going and leaving mid-trial to go see about a promotion.
Yeah.
Basically, having a promotion dangled in front of her, and yeah, the limited scope of the witnesses, the evidence.
Is Sternheim also represented Tartaglione?
Yes,
The skin tag over there. Yeah, it's a fucking joke, man. It's so many things, bro. So many things. It's like
they got to make a movie about this. I was thinking about this today or yesterday. I was like, man, this is too crazy. It's too crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, and that I've said this before too, man. If none of this had happened, you know, come out in the open, whatever. Someone wrote a movie with all these twists and turns. Epstein getting a slap on the wrist for his $500,000 or $500 million Ponzi scheme, and then fucking getting a cheesy ass prison sentence or jail sentence a few years back, where his security guards were dressed in business suits and all this shit, man. You know, if you were to write a story with all these twists and turns, no one would believe you. They'd be like, you're full of shit, man. And yet all these things are fully documented. It's just a big old shit show, man. And that's probably why, could be part of the reason why the mainstream hasn't really covered it. Because these guys were entangled with both sides. You know, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. These guys fucked around with everyone. So you almost get the sense that if they go too hard in the paint, you know, they could be hurting their friends that are attached to it. And part of the reason why I said that is you read these articles on these fucking characters, and to this day, even though they, Jeff Epstein, they call him what do they call him? A financier, a disgraced financier. And then fucking Ghislaine Maxwell, they call her a British socialite. To this fucking day, these are convicted fucking pedophiles. Why can't these fuckers call them convicted pedophiles, and they still use these terms. And so and we all know that, you know, Ghislaine as well as her dad, you know, being moguls in the, you know, with the press and all this shit. It's no coincidence, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, they do, a disgraced financier. Yeah, it was almost like a catchphrase. You know how much they were using it. But yeah, British socialite. And, you know, you mentioned Ryan too, and he's my resource. You know, him and Sean, and yeah, that was amazing that he said that. But yeah, he said that about British socialite basically just means spoiled brat, right?
Yeah. And they're convicted, man. Any other people, they'd be using the term convicted, you know, whatever the hell.
Yeah. They would be stitching them up.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I mean, the court has already rendered its ruling, and they're convicted peds, and yeah, they still get that protection, which is why, you know, people have so much distrust in the mainstream media. And then I guess that's kind of a segue to the whole Jean-Luc Brunel thing. You know, as soon as I heard about that, red flags, man, red flags. Now, you know, it's come out that apparently he had tried to off himself a couple times prior to this. This is what we're getting told. I mean, I still don't trust a lot of this shit, man, due to the amount of shenanigans we had received. So I don't know, man. Anytime I hear something on the mainstream, I take it with a grain of salt, man. I can't trust them, man. My distrust in them is crazy.
Well, how can you? I'm shocked people have any trust in them. And even in the alternative media, people I find still see the need to cite them over different sources, you know. So I think that needs to stop. They're garbage, you know, they really are. And covering this trial, you know, you're right, but they probably didn't send their best. But I want to see who that is, because, you know, going into the trial, I was not really sure. I just didn't know what to expect. But as like time went on, I realized like a lot of people had no idea really what this trial meant, I think, or they just pretended not to. I don't know, but certainly they didn't see a lot of the intelligence connections. I mean, Julie K. Brown doesn't mention that in her book at all, from what I've been told. And she gets, you know, so much praise, although she recently got sued by Haley Robson and Courtney Wild, who are both victims of the Epstein-Maxwell trafficking network. So that's interesting. I don't think no litigation between Vicky Ward and anybody yet, though, even though she threatened to sue when I interviewed her. People who were saying things which they've already said, but
that intelligence aspect of it is something that rarely ever gets mentioned, if at all. In the mainstream, you know, really the only people talking about it is the alternative sources. And it's just no one wants to touch Israel. Everyone's scared of the big bad Israeli regime. And once you dig into it, you can see why, but they shouldn't be off limits, man. Same thing with Saudi Arabia. I'm constantly criticizing Saudi Arabia and the Israeli regime, you know, and as soon as you mention it, you get labeled an anti-Semite, a fucking Islamophobe, and all this bullshit. I go, no, there's a difference between having disdain for a regime and you can separate the people, you know. And my biggest thing is the Zionist agenda, which is all behind this shit, man. The Zionist agenda has been going on for over 100 years now. And goddamn, once you get red-pilled on what Zionism is a political ideology, you know. And I think even normies don't fully understand what Zionism means. And to be a Zionist, you don't necessarily have to be even Jewish. There are Christian Zionists. Right. I would argue Trump was a goddamn Zionist.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
The way he behaved.
Yeah. Well, apparently Ivanka is now a convert. I just
Wow.
heard that the other day. Yeah, she just converted. So apparently she's no longer white. If you know, if,
Oh.
well, you know how it went with Whoopi mentioning that whole shit, and she got shit on for that. I was like, hey, I don't like her, but what did she lie about?
Hmm.
And so, but
Right.
yeah, apparently Ivanka is no longer a white female anymore. But I don't know where I'm going with that tangent. But yeah, the whole Mossad connections, man. From Robert Maxwell to his, I guess you could say, weird death. Some still argue that he was probably just drunk and passed over the boat, but the connections are there, and
Hmm.
even Alex Acosta, Trump's
Yeah.
Secretary of Labor, on his way out said that he couldn't mess with Epstein because he was connected to intelligence. What intelligence? You get. I mean, it's not hard to guess what intelligence he was talking about. It was the Israeli Mossad.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, you talk to someone like Ryan or Corey Hughes on that, and they'll red pill the shit out of you on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
why is it's probably because of that. You mention anything that has to do with Israel, and you get labeled an ism or a bigot and all this bullshit,
Hmm.
and that's why probably people are afraid to touch it.
Yeah. I was actually just talking about this with someone who's half Jewish through her mother, saying basically the same thing, how they're basically off limits. And it's something I noticed too from people who do great work, fantastic work as far as conservative, I would say, leaning media that are aimed at the truth. They tend not to touch Israel. I mean, you name it, like Steve Bannon, for example. I think he's
Yeah,
that's probably the best example I would say was Steve Bannon. But people who maybe fall under that umbrella of genre, if you want to look at it that way, tend not to speak out. They tend to be Christians and probably Zionists, at least
yeah,
some of them.
yeah. No question, man. I know when I had Ryan on, that's what he was talking about. He's like, Rumble's pretty cool. It's a lot better than being on YouTube. However, talking shit on Israel is a no over on Rumble.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
they're pro Zionists apparently. So I think he
Mhm.
got suspended for one of his videos talking shit about Israel. And
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
that's why. Yeah, I'm staying away from
I'm
that
maybe
site.
I'm getting shadow banned over there. I don't know because I had one video that did 500,000 views that blew up, and other than that, I just don't really get views on there. I even tried. I paid for the live streaming for a month or two, and I just found it not worth it. But
Yeah,
I actually didn't know they were doing that type of censorship over there.
yeah. I wouldn't go to Rumble, man. Just you know, I don't know. Once you start with that kind of shit, it's just like anything else. It's like when the government starts taking your rights, they don't give them back. They
Mhm.
just get tighter and tighter. So if they're already
Yeah.
suspending and blocking people already, and they're not that old, and they're already doing that shit, it's just gonna get worse. So fuck that, man. I'm staying away from them at all costs.
Yeah.
Sticking to
Yeah.
old Audi.
Yeah,
uh,
Odyssey's great. I like Rockfin a lot. I really am liking Rockfin. So um, I think this idea is going to expand. It almost seems like they outlive their. I mean, it's more so about trust, though. It's like you mentioned, it's they're doing this that early in their history, in their existence. It's like you said, it's just gonna when like I said, extrapolate it out over a timeline. It's only going to get exponentially worse.
yeah. Yeah, Rockfin seems to be a lot of place where you can find a lot of the people that have been banned on YouTube. You can find them on Rockfin, and it it's definitely growing. I think the word needs to get out there about Rockfin. Um, I don't think a lot of people know about it, unfortunately, but it is
It's still
growing.
growing.
Yeah,
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 yeah. I'm trying to recruit creators right now, to be honest. So yeah, it's good. And places like that, I think are really the future.
Yeah, man, 100%. Anytime you're, I like to call myself a free speech absolutist, man. Say whatever the fuck you want, man. And if you think it's a bad idea, you counter it with a better idea. You don't fucking silence it.
Right.
The truth shouldn't be scared of any other questions that may come at it. Because if it's the truth will hold. You know what I'm saying? And silencing people, canceling them, and all this cancel culture bullshit. There's a lot of fake motherfuckers out there that claim to be truthers, quote unquote, that will cancel your ass too, and they know who they are. But
yeah, definitely.
It's just a shit show. Shit, man. I tend to go off little tangents, man, but. No, this is my style, man. I just go off all over the damn place. When it comes to the Jean-Luc Brunel, what are your preliminary thoughts, or are you still waiting for more data, more information to come out?
Yeah, I'm still digging, and I mean, when I was, like, as I mentioned, I was on Sean Atwood's show yesterday, and the French Connection, Fred was on there, and that's where I learned about that March 11th court date for Jean-Luc Brunel, which was incoming, and a good opportunity for him in the French legal system to start trying to get the charges dropped or get acquitted. And then he kills himself. And then the other information that came out recently was that he had attempted suicide twice before, but that information wasn't released at the time they said the events happened, which I find suspicious. Yeah. And I just don't trust any of these people. So I think, especially when you look at the timing, not only of that court date, but Virginia Giuffre, Virginia Roberts settling with Prince Andrew, it just seems like they're trying to tie up some loose ends here in quick succession.
Well, I read an article that basically said, with Jean-Luc Brunel's death, this ends our investigation. Kind of like case fucking closed, man. Just what they needed. Yeah, man. What are your feelings on Virginia Giuffre, man? I did do a stream just last Saturday, and the thumbnail may have been considered controversial, man, but I basically said Virginia Giuffre, hero or sellout, and it seems like there's people, you're either on one side or the other. I don't know, man. I started to have questions about her almost about a year ago. Just some weird shit not adding up, and then one of my things with her is she's been living lavish, man. She's been living the high life for the last few years. Not to demean, everything that she went through. I'm not trying to say that, so I don't hope no one tries to twist my words. But
sure.
When you see the many hundreds, if not thousands, of other victims that are still living in the trailer parks, that are still battling drug addiction, that are still having a rough ass time, and some of these will probably never know who the fuck they are. You know what I mean? And Virginia's been balling, man. Yeah, she's been outspoken. Yes, 100%. But she's been balling for a while, man. And when it comes to this settlement, I've seen the number 8 million, 12 million, 20 million I've seen. I wouldn't be surprised if the number's even higher, man, because you're going up against the Royals. Those motherfuckers got some money. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I just feel like if she did sell out, I'm not saying she did. I'm just saying if she did, god damn, 12 million though? You know what I'm Why not ask for some Joe Rogan? Should have been a bigger number? Should have been some Joe Rogan kind of numbers, man.
Word.
You're dealing with the damn Royals, man.
Yeah, and that's probably a drop in the ocean to them.
That's what I'm saying. That's why this shit didn't make sense to me, bro. That's why I'm a little skeptical. as to the whole thing, man.
Sure.
And maybe I'm
That,
I'm I'm going too far deep. I'm curious to how you feel about it.
yeah, and it was for that reason that I brought up the question of getting a threat, because it was could be the case that it was like, well, this is the number you're going to get, or you can go this other way, uh, like the Spanish phrase plata o plomo,
Yeah, yeah,
lead or silver, right? Or silver or lead. So bullets or money basically is the question. So it could be she was given a bit of leeway in terms of negotiating potential, but then maybe once it got to a certain point, they were like, okay, you're going to go this other way if this number gets any higher if you don't take it. So I think that's a possibility,
what about this
but it could
possibility?
be. I'm sorry.
What about this possibility that the number is
Yeah.
indeed higher, but what got leaked out was that that those figures 8, 12 million, 20 million, but the number is actually indeed higher. I mean, it's undisclosed shit, so I mean, we're just left to guess at this point.
Yeah, Matthew Steeples made that point. He was like, the Daily Mail reported 12 million. Not sure where they got that, which is a valid point. It's like we just believe, like we mentioned before, these people have lost our trust already. They've lost the benefit of the doubt that you might afford somebody who you just met and you want to, give them that social trust, right? Maybe not like a deep personal trust, but the that social trust has been lost for so many people. It's like, maybe it's 12 million, maybe it's 150 million, and they're trying to save face. And maybe that's the number that Virginia got to because she had that much leverage or negotiating power. But it's an interesting case study in society because we do live in a time, and this has been mentioned by the last two female guests I've had, actually. Both ladies said we kind of are living in a time where you can't criticize women in a way, or there's like fear of doing so, particularly in this instance, and that's a sexual assault, sex crime victim, which
Yeah,
she clearly is. And that muddies it. Another thing that muddies it is the fact that she is the most important witness in this case, in several cases here. Uh, and that also makes people hesitant to be critical of her, right?
yeah, yeah,
But and that was something Bree said too. She was like, I'm going to say it for all the guys out there that may want to, but can't. I don't trust her. She's hiding something or something
yeah,
like that. She basically said she's not telling the whole truth. And I've had those thoughts too, but maybe it was fear or maybe it was patience. I don't know. You like to think you're being disciplined, but I just didn't really verbalize them until recently, only because other people had done so.
yeah,
Because I had been told, information over a year ago about the possibility of this idea of her being in a kidon, which is one of these Mossad like dozen rings, or a ring. It's like a dozen people, and they work together over a course. Like it's a longitudinal work, and it's like decentralized in that they don't really meet each other necessarily. So that was an idea I heard that I was skeptical of, but I'm now revisiting. So
mm,
yeah, it's been interesting, especially I think the reason I think people are talking about it now is because of this agreement to settle. I think it really shocked and upset a lot of people, and people are starting to ask some questions now that before they were hesitant to do so, or maybe some of them maybe it didn't even cross their mind yet, perhaps. But now I think more and more people are asking that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think I had been feeling this way for, like I said, about a year ago, but I think what really, really kind of pushed me over the edge, if you will, was when she had been stating, she's like, I ain't settling, fuck that, his shit's gonna get exposed, and then she settles, so I was like, man, fuck it. I'm completely off. Team
Right.
Jufre, man. I know it may sound horrible, for some people to hear me say that, but that's just how I feel. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna bullshit you. That's how I feel. And I don't know. At the end of the day, and that number. The reason I've thought that maybe the number in actuality could be a lot higher. Uh, for a while now. I mean, when did Joe Rogan go to Spotify? It's been a while, maybe a year now. And
Not even. I think it was late summer, maybe
late
early
summer,
fall.
it's been a while, whatever the case.
Yeah,
But
it's been a few months for
yeah,
sure.
and we had been told for the longest fucking time that it was $100 million deal. Well, now a few days ago, reports started coming out that no, it wasn't 100 million. It was closer to 200 million. So
Oh wow, I
the
missed that.
initial reports were half of what is now believed to be actual $200 million. So that's what made me think, well, what if this is kind of the same thing going on with Jufre, where I mean, and if she wasn't a sellout or whatever, or and she's not, you can think what you want, but she's not stupid. She knows she's going up against the goddamn Royals. She knows they got some money. She knows they got them stacks. So
Yeah,
why not
yeah.
why not go for more? And then maybe that's what got leaked out was the 8. Because I was watching a segment on 60 Minutes Australia, and they were throwing out the 20 million number. So I've seen 8 million, I've seen 12 million, and now I've seen 20 million. So not all of them can be right, but they can all be wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah.
That's just speculation on my part. I've got nothing to
No,
back it up.
that's an interesting idea, and I hadn't thought about it before. It makes sense because it would appease them in private and then publicly save face for the people who have to pay up, right? Whether it's
Yeah,
Spotify in the Joe Rogan case or the Royals in the Virginia case. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think it's a possibility for sure.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of that little scummy Mister Nonce Andrew, Prince Andrew, whatever the hell you want to call him. Yeah, I know he had a recently he had a birthday, and I'm not familiar with the UK custom is for the royals, but apparently they you know fly some flags and for all the royal families on their birthdays and all this shit. And apparently they didn't do it for him. And I mentioned this to Ryan. It almost seems like everyone, everyone knows that he's a fucking scumbag kid toucher. Everyone knows that. He can't show his face in public. Everyone knows it. Uh, the problem that I have though is how fucked up it is that for him to be in the shit house in the doghouse, he can't come out in public. That's good enough for us. The motherfucker is a pedophile. He should have been locked up, and yet the outcry isn't really there for that. It's just, haha, good. He's a kid toucher. We know about it. We've come to a place where we have accepted that. I don't know, man. It kind of bothers me, if I'm being honest.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of deep in a way because it's observing the observing the obvious in a way that like we're almost like glossing it over.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not good, man. It reminds me of something Nick Bryant said. He said, "We as a society cannot allow people to molest children with impunity." I think was the quote, and yeah, you just made me think of that because it's the people who control. Um, it's like the power distribution. Most of the power is held by a few people, and we have to hold them accountable. And we as a society, because it's like pretty much on our backs. I said this with Matthew Lee, and he agreed with me. The night of the verdict, it seems to be up to the citizenry to seek and demand justice in
Yeah.
this case.
But but that's exactly where the problem lies, is that we the people, and I'm not talking about you and I or people that listen to us, but the vast majority of people don't give a fuck, man. We started talking about how the Kyle Rittenhouse got so much attention, and yet the Maxwell trial rarely got a blip. I remember on my own social media, I was talking about Maxwell. I mean, if I make a post of me scratching my ass and smelling my finger, 100 likes, everyone's laughing and commenting, good times. I talk about the Maxwell trial, no one gives a fuck. No, I'm sure they see it. I'm sure they see the fucking post, but no
Yeah, yeah,
likes, no comments, no nothing. It's like, dude, it's so fucking depressing. It's frustrating that this is why it's related to everything else. The COVID shit, everything else. The masses don't give a fuck, man. They'd rather fucking laugh about some stupid video on YouTube or whatever, but the real shit, the shit that
sure,
matters, they
yeah,
just don't care. And I don't even know what to do about that, man.
yeah. It's almost like we have to. Wow, it just made me connect an idea. So my friend Norman brought up this idea of he wants to he's like, I want to make journalists the next rock stars, but from your perspective of like need, it's almost like we have to, because then unfortunately humans being driven by those sort of lower motivations will be more likely to want to seek the truth out. But it maybe that's inevitable, but it probably would only maybe only muddy things more, because then there would be more money involved. Kind of like you see with the amateur sports athletes getting paid under the table, etc. But um, it's like how do you change the values of a society?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and I think that's probably where governments come into play a lot too. Through predictive programming, uh, the constant, the barrage of propaganda we get through our news sources. You know, shit we consider mainstream, TV, fucking radio, everything, man. Just a barrage. You turn it on, man. All you hear is COVID 24/7, COVID 24/7, and that served as a excellent cover for during the entire Maxwell hearing. It was shadowed by COVID, and yet when Kyle Rittenhouse happened, yeah, we could drop COVID for a minute and we'll cover this shit. It's like, I think
Right.
that's
Yeah.
part of the plan.
That was crazy. That was nuts. And I only realized that really in hindsight. But in hindsight, I was like, during that time period, I, it wasn't a focus of mine, and it never really became one. And maybe that was a mistake, because there was a day I almost went to Kenosha a few days after the bloodshed, and just being from Wisconsin, and I was in Wisconsin at the time, but I decided not to, and then I tuned out of the trial. But looking back at it, it was like, wow, like I didn't realize that like Neerman had such an influence in that, along with all the other lawyers, and now we're seeing really the explosion of the lawyer YouTuber, I think, in a way that hasn't been seen before, because people are wondering how these societal levers function, and these lawyers are really the guys who do that. So yeah, you're right though.
Are you saying? Are you
Contrasting.
saying? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was
I
gonna
was
say.
just contrasting the Rittenhouse trial with the Maxwell trial. Yeah, it's almost night and day in a way. It's very different. It's the Maxwell trial was almost more of a covert operation, where you had just a few. I don't even know. We've tried estimating. One day I said on one finger, but I think that was incorrect. Someone said 150 people. I think that's way too high. I would say maybe 25 people that were there every single day.
God damn,
But other
25
than
people.
that, yeah, I would say maybe 30 people. I don't know. I mean, if you're
Fuck.
excluding the people who work there, the
Yeah,
people who
yeah.
came to cover it, it was maybe 2 dozen people or
That's what
so.
I'm saying, man. It's
Yeah.
that's no one.
Hmm.
No one's paying attention. And that to me is the biggest travesty. You hold these other fucking court hearings and the courtroom is overfilled and you've got paparazzi waiting, outside the courthouse and all this shit, man. Uh, yeah, it's kind of depressing when I really think about it. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna ask you, do you think Alan Dershowitz should start a YouTube channel then?
Shoot,
Speaking
I
of the
wouldn't be
TV lawyer,
surprised if he does. I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
little
That
slimy
guy's,
fuck.
yeah, he never misses a chance at the camera, does he?
That
But he
that's
didn't show up at
that's
the trial.
dude. But
So,
did you see how the fucking BBC interviewed him to get his thoughts on the Maxwell
yeah,
trial?
night of the verdict. I remember that. And then I
What a
talked to
fucking
this,
joke, man.
yeah, I talked to this woman who was like a former actress, and she was covering the trial, and I guess she called him, and he said no comment on that. But yeah, I remember that. That was a big controversy, and then the BBC came and backtracked and retracted it.
Yeah, they took it down. Yeah, man. Here, this dude has paid out settlements for his participation in abuse of Epstein victims, and they're asking for his fucking thoughts on the Maxwell trial. You can't make this shit up, man. It's a fucking joke. You don't think the BBC knew about this shit, or
Yeah,
maybe they were
the
banking on
BBC
people?
actually interviewed me. A woman from the BBC did,
Oh
but
yeah.
they didn't use any of my of my
Uh,
segment, and I actually pulled punches. But I think it was because I mentioned Mr. Wexner's name that it didn't
oh
make it.
god. Yeah, man. How the hell isn't that little creepy fuck under arrest? No talk about his shit. Uh, Me Too never went knocking on his doors. None of that shit, man. And he's allowed to trollops all over the world, man, and do as he pleases.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. What would happen if like 200 people showed up at Wexner's property? Like, would his
Picketing.
security guards just massacre them all? Probably not.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fucking joke, man. Yeah, they'll go after other shit, man. But I mean, this guy was running Victoria's Secrets. You know, I'm sure tons and tons of fuckery was going on during those times. And yeah, interestingly enough, Victoria's Secrets made the news recently too. With they had that young lady with Down syndrome.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, she was packing some heat, and they just threw her up on Victoria's Secrets.
Yeah.
What
Wow.
what was the point of that? I don't know. Maybe they're trying to repair the image, or I don't know. I don't even think that many people gave a fuck about it, to be honest with you. Sadly enough, it's.
Yeah, going back to what we were just talking about, I think it's yeah, people need to draw a line in the sand. I think in a way that they're not doing, at least to the extent that we want.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's all part of the propaganda. Uh, so just to wrap it up, I don't want to take too much of your time, but so today we did hear the what it looks like the start of an invasion, Russia to Ukraine. Um, I'm no expert
Yeah.
on it, but I think you may know a tidbit or two. What are your thoughts on the whole shenanigans going on over there?
Yeah. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, but you can assume that the CIA is involved in whatever the hell is going on over there, which I don't think anybody knows for sure exactly what, but the West and NATO have been funding this Azov Brigade, which is this far right neo nationalist Pravi sector, which means like right sector uh, group that hates Russians to invoke conflict. And in 2014, the Maidan And man, the video footage from that revolution or insurrection rather is, man, it's heavy combat. When they're protesting, it's that they're using like these huge rocks and like chucking them at police, and it sounds like hail because of how the frequency with which they're tossing these things. And I just remember seeing one video. And this is not my area of expertise, but I'm just telling you what I know about it. And there's one guy, and he just looked like he was dead. He was just completely limp, and it was just like it made the BLM protests, which were or the riots, they were riots, most of them, a lot of them. It made those look very tame.
Like patty
It was
cake.
like, oh yeah, it was combat. It
Yeah,
really
yeah,
was.
the real
And
deal.
yeah, and it wasn't firearms though. It was pretty much hand to hand, but it was very very violent. And there were agent provocateurs during the Maidan massacre or Maidan firefight, snipers that were mercenaries, apolitical, amoral, just shooting because they're shooting to kill because they're paid to do so on both sides. So they would kill people on both sides. So imagine like a mercenary being paid to shoot up both sides of the wall back when
Yeah,
the wall was up, in Europe. Like that's like a similar idea, but it was in this. I think it was in Kiev in the Maidan Square. So that being said, as far as what's going on now, it does seem like Putin got pushed to the limit a little bit with regards to maybe being disrespected or having his territory encroached because Nadia L, who I just had on my show, is of Slavic descent. She's half Russian and half Ashkenazi. And she is basically explaining that most of that area are Russians. Those are ethnic Russians, and they would probably are okay with being annexed. So the fact that the West was kind of pushing on that maybe tipped Putin over the edge. And that being said, the exaggeration of the Russian influence on the West is not to be understated, especially with regards to what happened with Donald Trump and how the American intelligence agencies treated Donald Trump. It was just unfair, to say the least.
yeah. It's been interesting to see the whole how basically the Biden administration had been saying that Russia was planning some false flag attacks uh,
Yeah,
and saying all this shit, and meanwhile Ukraine's in the background saying no 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 settle down. They're telling us Americans to settle down. Everything is
mm-hmm.
good. But when this happened today, I was pretty shocked. Like, oh shit, they actually went for it. And who
Yeah,
knows? Who
yeah,
knows,
I
man?
was too.
At the end of the day, this is just my opinion, man. I think the people at the very fucking top could be coordinating this shit, man. I think a lot of these clowns, it doesn't matter if it's Putin,
Yeah,
Trump, Biden,
right.
whatever. They're all puppets. There's
Yeah,
people
yeah,
tugging those goddamn strings. So maybe this was done to set off some kind of planned chain of events that we just don't know about
definitely.
yet. Who knows? Though I'm a dumbass when it comes to that kind of shit. I listen to tidbits here and there, but like I said earlier, man, it's just with so much bullshit we get fed, it's just hard to take anything serious, man. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
maybe they're planning to do some Project Bluebeam. I was thinking about that actually, dude, when I started hearing the whole war going on. Like, oh fuck, here comes holographic Jesus and an alien invasion, bro. This is the perfect time to to do
yeah.
that shit.
Independence Day, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. My man, it was an awesome conversation. Where can people find
Thank
you
you,
again?
Weezy. Yeah, I'm my website's addyads.one. My writing what's that? addyads.substack.com. People want to buy my book, How to Cover the Ghislaine Maxwell Trial, I'd really appreciate it. And buymeacoffee.com/addyads, rockfin.com/addyads, twitter.com/one addyads, one spelled out. And yeah, if you just type in Addy Ads, ADDYADS, in your favorite search engine, preferably not Google, DuckDuckGo, or Yandex or something else, it should pop up. So thanks for having
There
me
you
on,
go,
Wizzy. It's
dude.
always fun chatting with you, man.
Yeah, man. We'll have to do it again some other time. My man, thank you so much. Enjoy your rest of a couple hours. You're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm back actually in the city. I'm in New York City right now. So
Try that pizza, man. Ain't nothing like New York pizza, man. That's the best in the world.
word,
All right, my
word.
brother. Take it easy, man. Have a good night.
Thanks, Wizzy.